Random House Audio presents Outrageous Fortune by Tim Scott. Read for you by Kirby Heyborne. Art is the lie which helps us understand the truth. Pablo Picasso, 1881 to 1973. All things are subject to interpretation. Whichever interpretation prevails at a given time is a function of power and not truth. That which does not kill us makes us stronger. Friedrich Nietzsche, 1844 to 1900. Part 1. Don't ever do this. In the confused moment of death, we all find ourselves truly alone, with only what little sense of who we actually are and our love for others to guide us. Chapter 1. Fuckers, I whispered to myself as I looked at the small, pristine business card held lightly between my fingers. On it were the words, "Don't you hate it when this happens?" It was printed in a rather fetching raised font, something like Arial black, or maybe even charcoal. In the bottom right-hand corner, inexplicably, I noticed a phone number. Fuckers, I repeated, feeling like there was just too much new information to take in, and my brain had temporarily crashed. Fuckers, I added quietly after a pause. I looked around, but everything else seemed pretty much the same as it had the night before. The advertising billboard smeared with a huge poster for chocolate sleep-awake, a good-night wake-you-up drink, which sent you to sleep gently, then woke you up a bit later at exactly the time it said on the tin. There had been a court case the year before when a woman claimed she'd bought a tin of 810, but it had woken her up at 17 minutes past each hour, every hour, then sent her to sleep again 3 minutes later. And it had done it for 10 days solid. She tried to claim damages, but the courts laughed at her case. Justice was more like an infection these days. Sometimes it was about, sometimes it wasn't. "Why couldn't she just buy an alarm clock like everyone else?" the judge demanded, somewhat flippantly in his summing up. I wondered exactly what the hell to do next, which was made doubly difficult because my mind resented facing the awful truth of the present and kept trying to skid off elsewhere. Fuckers! Fuckers! I thought, gazing at the array of pipes around my feet. A man in a sharp suit and Christmas present tie walked past, looking awkwardly at me. Meeting my eyes, he nodded a smile. "Morning," he said. "Fuckers," I said pleasantly, making a kind of look-what-happened-to-me gesture with my arms, which was not a gesture I could ever remember making before. "Exactly," he said, without breaking stride. Yes, everything else on my street was pretty much as you'd expect. The smell of oil from somewhere, the neon advertising sign that picked your name up from your C4 Charlie and turned the whole fluid color screen into a personal ad, which had all been very state-of-the-art 20 years earlier, but now was sad and neglected. Part of the screen had crashed, and for the past 3 months it had got stuck on a Jessica E21, and no one had come to fix it. Yes, the bikes still wound ceaselessly past on the freeway, and inside the shabby laundromat were the time-honored mix of bored students and worn-out mothers. The flags at the gate out of chill-out fluttered in the distance. Everything was as it had been the night before, when I headed off to the all-night bar 6 blocks away to see Emma and create my first disaster. The evening had started fine, the usual warm, friendly mix of chatter, and then somehow we drifted into a humongous argument. I really couldn't even remember about what or why. She was perfect for me. She was organized, pretty in a no-surprises sort of way, and not altogether paranoid. So why had I upset her so much that she had walked out and left me to sink a surprisingly large amount of alcohol on my own? I know I felt she was generally motivated by fear, and I found that immensely frustrating. I wanted to shake it out of her, say, "Come on, forget about what other people will think, just for once." Maybe this is why I argued with her. Maybe I wanted to make something give because I was kidding myself we were a couple, when I knew deep down we were just a convenient distraction for each other. I looked around. Everything was the same, exactly as you'd expect. Everything, that is, except for the stupendously large hole between two buildings in the exact spot where my house used to be. "Fuckers," I said again. "Someone stole my fucking house." It happened. Not so much now, or maybe it didn't get as much news coverage since the novelty had worn off, but house stealing was inextricably part of the state culture. Once someone invented a means of stuffing solid matter down to 1/100th of its size, it became the crime all respectable drug gangs wanted a part of. Houses were generally stolen to order now, for rich people who couldn't be bothered to go through that whole thing of buying furniture and spending hours lamenting over curtain colors and fretting over bathroom fittings. They simply looked through one of the many catalogs that did the rounds on the dark side and put a check mark against the one they wanted. Then some guys came along and stole it, and took it to a new location, usually in another state a long way away. In the old days, gangs had stolen all the houses they conceivably could, but then often found they couldn't shift them. I'd heard of a place out in the desert in Mexico where there was a scattering of New York penthouses and condos from Florida. They languished at odd angles to each other with no roads and no services, and no one living there except a few students who went out to party now and again. I always fancied going there. This was definitely a moment to light up a cigarette, but I fought the urge. Sure, I could call in zone securities. I could wait around for a tired cop in a seen-better days uniform to come down and nod in a "there's one born every minute" kind of way. Yeah, I could answer a bundle of questions, but we'd both know my house was long gone. When a bad thing happens, it asks you who you are. And if you're not sure, the bad thing gets inside you. It finds a place to hide, and you carry it around. I didn't have a particularly good grip on who I was. Too much stuff had stirred up my head. Too many moments of confusion had knocked me off course. I wanted so much to tidy up the loose ends of my life and start again, but they just kept unraveling, as though some hidden part of me was pulling at the threads. "Don't you hate it when this happens?" I said in a barely audible voice, slipping the business card into my inside pocket. "They steal my house and they leave this." If I hadn't been so pissed off, I would have loved them for it. I took one last look at the hole. They'd sealed off the water and gas and vis media like professionals, and made a decision. What I quite clearly needed more than anything right now was a Long Island iced tea. No, actually, what I needed were about 46 Long Island iced teas, one after the other. And I would have headed off to find them straight away if, at that moment, I had not been accosted by a whirlwind of old newspapers that flew at me like they were out to make some sort of point, or were incensed I hadn't read them properly. I battled them out of the way, knowing with a sinking feeling that the approaching howl I could hear meant I was going to see something bad when I got them off my head. And there it was. A Gaffa 6 helicopter, hovering about 20 feet off the ground. Not state-of-the-art, the Gaffa 6, but tried and tested. You weren't a proper gang if you didn't have a Gaffa 6. There was a thick smell of smoke from the engine, which didn't seem altogether healthy, and a slick, impenetrable roar from the rotors. The paintwork was scratched up, and the logo on the nose too beat up to make out properly, but I could see, quite clearly, the two 8mm machine guns, and they were definitely fixed on me. My mind reeled. Maybe the guys who stole my house wanted to tie up the loose ends? But that seemed unlikely because this was much too over-the-top a way of going about it. Whoever was in there had been in a hurry to get here. But why? I reckoned I had a wild, outside chance of taking out the pilot if I could get a hold of my gun before being riddled with holes, but instinct told me to hang back. If they'd wanted me dead, whoever they were, I would be dead by now. A rope fell out of the open side door, and a small figure in black slid down and landed about 10 feet away. The helicopter yawed away and was gone. "You're probably wondering what I'm doing here," said the figure.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?